What if the pesticide sitting in your garden shed is doing more damage to your family than the pests it is supposed to kill? That is not a dramatic claim, and it is not a conspiracy theory. The research being published by independent scientists and toxicologists over the last 30 years tells a very consistent and very uncomfortable story. Synthetic chemicals that the agricultural industry has been selling to home gardeners since the middle of the 20th century have been linked in peer-reviewed studies to hormone disruption and neurological damage and increased cancer in children who play in gardens where these products are regularly applied. And here is what makes that finding genuinely painful. You did not need those chemicals in the first place. Not because pests are not a real problem, because they absolutely are, but because God already solved that problem thousands of years before any chemical company existed. He placed specific plants in the earth that repel and destroy the insects that threaten your crops, using compounds so sophisticated that modern researchers are actively studying them as the basis for next-generation pesticide. And those same compounds that protect your garden also protect and heal your family from the inside. What the Egyptians knew 3,000 years ago, and what the Greeks knew, and what medieval farmers across Europe knew, is that certain plants are living shields. A garden planted with wisdom does not need to be sprayed with poison. Ancient farmers did not have garden centers selling them chemical solutions. They had knowledge passed from generation to generation about which plants belonged together and why, and the harvests they produced fed entire civilizations. Stay with me, because plant number 4 on this list appears directly in the Bible and was used across ancient cultures on multiple continents simultaneously, which tells you something profound about how reliable it truly is. And plant number 1 has been called the village pharmacy of India for 4,000 years, and the science being published right now is confirming every single reason why ancient people trusted it that completely. By the end of this video, you will never look at your garden the same way again, because you will understand that the most sophisticated pest control system ever designed was not invented in a laboratory. It was placed in the earth by God long before any laboratory ever opened its doors. Plant number 7, wormwood. We begin with wormwood, and we begin here because this is the plant that most people recognize from Scripture, but almost nobody understands as a living garden tool. Wormwood appears in the Bible as a symbol of bitterness and judgment and consequence, named in the book of Proverbs and the book of Lamentations and the book of Revelation, where a star called wormwood falls and makes the waters bitter. But the reason the biblical writers chose wormwood as their symbol of bitterness is precisely because of what this plant contains. Because wormwood is one of the most intensely bitter plants on earth, and that bitterness is not an accident. It is a weapon. The ancient Egyptians used wormwood extensively to repel insects from their grain stores and their homes. And Egyptian medical papyri, dating back over 3,000 years, document wormwood as both a pest deterrent and a medicinal herb used to treat intestinal parasites and fever and pain. The Romans used wormwood to protect their stored food from moths and beetles, and the writings of Pliny the Elder specifically describe wormwood being placed among stored grains to prevent infestation. These were not superstitious practices. These were the results of thousands of years of careful observation about what worked and what did not. What the research actually shows about wormwood is that it contains a compound called absinthin, along with thujone and artebsin, and a collection of volatile oils that are intensely repellent to a broad range of insects, including aphids, whiteflies and moths and beetles, and the larvae of many common garden pests. A study published in the journal Industrial Crops and Products demonstrated that wormwood extract showed significant insecticidal activity against several species of agricultural pests, with the volatile oils disrupting the nervous systems of insects while remaining far less toxic to mammals than synthetic alternatives. But wormwood does not just protect your garden from the outside, because the compounds that repel insects from your crops are the same compounds that have been studied for their effects inside the human body. Artemisinin, which is derived from a close relative of wormwood called Artemisia annua, has become one of the most important anti-malarial drugs in the world and is recommended by the World Health Organization as a first-line treatment for malaria. Research into wormwood compounds has also demonstrated antiparasitic, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory properties that ancient healers observed and used for thousands of years before modern science had the language to explain them. Wormwood is a perennial that grows to about 1 meter tall with distinctive silvery gray feathery leaves that are beautiful in any garden and deeply aromatic. Planted in full sun with well-drained soil, and it will thrive with minimal watering once established. Place it as a border plant around your vegetable beds, and the volatile oils it releases into the air around it will create a natural repellent zone that deters many common garden pests from entering the area at all. You can also make a simple wormwood tea by steeping the dried leaves in water and spraying it directly onto affected plants as a contact repellent. One established wormwood plant will protect a significant area of garden for years. God chose this plant as a symbol of bitterness in Scripture because its bitterness is legendary. And for the insects that destroy your garden, that bitterness is not symbolic. It is lethal. Plant number 6. Lavender. Lavender is the plant that most people associate with relaxation and soap and bedroom sprays, and that association has caused almost everyone to forget what lavender actually is. Lavender is one of the most powerful natural insect repellents on Earth, and it has been used as one for thousands of years across multiple ancient civilizations simultaneously. The ancient Egyptians used lavender extensively in their embalming process and in the perfuming of their temples and their clothing, and one of the reasons they valued it so highly was that insects avoided it completely. Linen wrapped in dried lavender stayed free of moths and beetles for years. The Romans used lavender to scent their baths and their bedding specifically because it repelled the fleas and lice that were a constant threat in ancient urban environments. And the Latin word lavare, meaning to wash, is the root of the name lavender, because washing with lavender was understood to be protective as well as cleansing. Medieval European households strewed lavender across their floors and hung it in their doorways and placed it between their stored linens as standard pest prevention practice that worked so reliably it persisted for centuries. Here is what the research shows about why lavender works so powerfully against insects. Lavender contains a volatile compound called linalool, along with linalool acetate and camphor, and a complex mixture of terpenes that are highly toxic to the nervous systems of insects, while being completely safe and pleasantly aromatic for humans. A study published in the journal Pest Management Science demonstrated that lavender essential oil showed significant repellent activity against mosquitoes comparable to low concentrations of DEET, which is the synthetic chemical found in most commercial insect repellents. Research has also demonstrated lavender's effectiveness against aphids, whiteflies, fleas, moths, and several species of beetle that commonly damage garden crops. But lavender does not stop at protecting your garden from pests, because the same compounds that make it toxic to insects have profound effects on the human nervous system in the opposite direction. Clinical trials have demonstrated that lavender aromatherapy significantly reduces anxiety and improves sleep quality, and a standardized lavender oil preparation called Silexin has been studied in multiple randomized controlled trials and shown to be as effective as lorazepam for generalized anxiety disorder. Lavender also demonstrates significant antimicrobial activity against bacteria including Staph aureus and E. coli, and has been shown to have anti-inflammatory properties relevant to skin healing and wound care. Lavender is a perennial shrub that thrives in full sun and dry, well-drained soil, and actually performs better in poor soil than in rich, fertile ground. Plant it along the borders of your vegetable beds and around the entrances to your home, and the volatile oils it continuously releases will create a persistent repellent barrier that works around the clock without any effort from you. In hot climates like those across West Africa, lavender grows exceptionally well and blooms prolifically, and the more it blooms, the more powerfully it repels. Harvest the flower spikes before they fully open, dry them, and place them in your home as natural pest deterrents that also fill your living space with one of the most calming scents in the plant kingdom. The Romans washed with it, The Egyptians embalmed with it, and your family can grow it in any garden bed starting today. Plant number 5, rosemary. Rosemary has been growing in gardens around the Mediterranean for so long that its origins are essentially inseparable from the origins of human civilization in that region. Ancient Greek students wore garlands of rosemary around their heads during examinations because they believed it strengthened memory and cognitive function, and the science published in the last 20 years suggests they were not wrong to believe that. But before rosemary was a cognitive enhancer, it was a garden protector, and that is the role that most modern gardeners have completely forgotten. Ancient farmers across the Mediterranean understood that growing rosemary among their vegetables significantly reduced the damage caused by carrot flies and cabbage moths and bean beetles and aphids. And this practice was so well established that it was documented in Roman agricultural texts as standard companion planting advice. The aromatic oils that rosemary continuously releases into the surrounding air confuse and repel the insects that use scent to locate their host plants. And when a carrot fly cannot smell the carrots because the air around them is saturated with rosemary oil, it moves on to find easier targets elsewhere. The research that confirms this is compelling. Studies have shown rosemary essential oil to be significantly repellent to a range of common agricultural pests, including the carrot fly, the cabbage moth, the Mexican bean beetle, and several species of aphid. A study published in the journal Phytochemistry documented the specific volatile compounds in rosemary, including 1,8-cineol and camphor and borneol, as the primary active agents responsible for this insect repellent activity. But here is what makes rosemary genuinely extraordinary in the context of your family's health. The same volatile compounds that repel insects from your garden have been shown in clinical research to have significant effects on human cognitive function. A study conducted at Northumbria University in the United Kingdom found that participants in a room diffused with rosemary aroma performed significantly better on memory tests and mental arithmetic tasks than those in a room with no scent, and the researchers identified absorbed levels of 1,8-cineol in the blood as the mechanism responsible for the cognitive enhancement. Rosemary also contains rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid, which are among the most potent antioxidants found in any herb and have been studied for their neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Rosemary is one of the most garden-friendly plants you can grow because it is a hardy perennial that, once established, requires almost no attention. Planted in full sun with excellent drainage, and it will grow into a substantial shrub that lives for many years, continuously releasing its protective oils into the surrounding air. Plant rosemary among your brassicas and root vegetables and you will notice a significant reduction in the pest damage that would otherwise require chemical intervention. You can also make a simple rosemary spray by simmering fresh rosemary in water for 20 minutes, allowing it to cool, straining it, and applying it directly to pest-affected plants. Ancient Greek students wore this plant on their heads to think more clearly. Ancient farmers grew it around their crops to protect their harvests. Your garden can benefit from both of those discoveries at the same time. Plant number 4, thyme. Stop and consider what it means that the ancient Egyptians used thyme in the embalming process. Embalming was the most important ritual in Egyptian culture, and it was the process by which they preserved the bodies of their most sacred dead for eternity. And they chose thyme as one of the key preserving agents because they understood something profound about this plant. Thyme kills things that cause decay. It kills bacteria and fungi and the organisms of decomposition with a reliability that 3,000 years of use had proven beyond any doubt. That same property that made thyme essential to Egyptian embalmers makes it one of the most powerful natural pest and disease control agents available to any gardener today. The active compound in thyme that produces this effect is called thymol, and thymol is not an obscure or unproven compound. It is the active ingredient in Listerine mouthwash and in a range of commercial sanitizing products because its antimicrobial activity is so well documented and so powerful that the industrial cleaning industry has adopted it as a standard active agent. The United States Environmental Protection Agency has registered thymol as a minimum risk pesticide, meaning it has formally recognized that thymol derived from thyme is effective as a pesticide and safe enough to require no special regulatory restrictions. In the garden, thyme works as both a companion plant that repels insects through its volatile oils and as a direct treatment for fungal diseases that devastate crops. Research has shown thyme essential oil to be significantly repellent to aphids and whiteflies, and the cabbage looper and several species of moth, and studies have demonstrated thyme extract to be effective against the fungal pathogens that cause damping off and botrytis and powdery mildew, which are among the most destructive diseases that home gardeners face. The medicinal science around thyme is equally extraordinary. Thyme has been used as a respiratory medicine across multiple ancient cultures for thousands of years, and the clinical research confirms why this tradition persisted. A study published in the journal Arzneimittelforschung found that a thyme and ivy syrup was as effective as the standard pharmaceutical expectorant for treating acute bronchitis, and the European Medicines Agency has formally approved thyme herb preparations for the treatment of coughs associated with colds. Thymol also demonstrates powerful antifungal activity relevant to conditions including athlete's foot and oral thrush, and thyme tea has been used for centuries as a natural antiseptic wash for wounds and skin infections. Thyme is one of the most low-maintenance plants in any garden, and it spreads slowly into a dense aromatic ground cover that suppresses weeds while simultaneously repelling the insects that would otherwise damage the plants growing nearby. Planted in full sun with very well-drained soil and water sparingly, because thyme evolved in the dry, rocky hillsides of the Mediterranean and actually suffers in overly moist conditions. Plant it as a border around your vegetable beds, or between rows of brassicas and root vegetables, and let it do the work that it has been doing in gardens for 3,000 years. The Egyptians trusted this plant with their most sacred dead. You can trust it with your living garden. If you are watching this and beginning to understand that God designed these plants to protect your family from the outside in and the inside out, then this channel exists for you. Because Life Gardens is built on the belief that the most sophisticated solutions to your family's health and garden challenges were placed in the earth long before any laboratory ever opened its doors. Hit subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell, because we are just past the halfway point, and the next 3 plants are the most powerful ones on this list. Plant number 3, lemon balm. Lemon balm is one of those plants that most people walk past in the garden center without a second glance, because it looks ordinary and unassuming, and nothing about its appearance suggests that it has been one of the most valued medicinal and protective plants in human history for over 2,000 years. But appearances in the plant kingdom are deeply misleading, and lemon balm is perhaps the most underestimated plant that you can grow. The ancient Greeks dedicated lemon balm to the goddess Diana and grew it extensively around their beehives because they understood that lemon balm attracted bees powerfully while simultaneously repelling the pests and parasites that threatened their hives, and this dual function made it one of the most strategically planted herbs in ancient Greek agriculture. The Arab physicians of the medieval period, whose medical knowledge was among the most advanced in the world at that time, prescribed lemon balm specifically for lifting the spirits and strengthening the heart and calming anxiety. And the 11th century Persian physician Avicenna wrote that lemon balm causeth the heart to become merry, which is a description that the clinical research being published today would not dispute. Here is what the research actually shows about lemon balm as a garden protector. Lemon balm contains a compound called citronellol, along with geraniol and linalool and citrol, and these are the same families of compounds found in citronella, which is the most widely used natural insect repellent in the world. Research has shown lemon balm essential oil to be significantly repellent to mosquitoes and gnats and aphids, and several species of flying insect that damage garden crops, And the continuous release of these volatile compounds from the living plant creates a protective zone around it that benefits neighboring plants throughout the growing season. The medicinal science around lemon balm is among the most well-documented of any garden herb. A study published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine found that lemon balm significantly reduced stress and improved mood and cognitive performance in healthy volunteers. And a randomized controlled trial published in Nutrients demonstrated that lemon balm extract significantly improved sleep quality and reduced anxiety in people suffering from mild to moderate anxiety disorders. Lemon balm also demonstrates significant antiviral activity, and research has shown lemon balm extract to be effective against herpes simplex virus and several other viral pathogens, with clinical trials showing that topical lemon balm preparations significantly reduce the healing time and recurrence rate of cold sores. Lemon balm is one of the easiest herbs you will ever grow, and it thrives in almost any condition, from full sun to partial shade, and in a wide range of soil types. It grows vigorously, and like mint is best contained in a pot if you do not want it to spread through your garden, though unlike mint its spread is more manageable. Plant it near your vegetable beds and near any areas where mosquitoes or flying insects are a persistent problem, and the volatile oils it releases will provide continuous natural protection. Fresh lemon balm leaves can be brewed as a calming tea that your family can drink daily, dried and stored for use throughout the year, or crushed and rubbed on the skin as an immediate insect repellent that works within minutes. The ancient Greeks grew it around their hives to protect their most valuable agricultural asset. Avicenna prescribed it to make the heart merry, and you can grow it in a single pot and give your family both of those gifts at once. Plant number 2, marigold. Here is something that most gardeners know, but almost none of them fully understand. Marigolds are the most widely recommended companion plant in the world, and every experienced gardener will tell you to plant them near your tomatoes and your peppers and your brassicas. But when you ask most gardeners why marigolds work, they will tell you something vague about them keeping pests away without being able to explain the mechanism, and that vagueness does a profound disservice to one of the most scientifically validated and historically rich plants in any garden. Marigolds have been cultivated across ancient cultures on multiple continents for thousands of years, and the fact that both the ancient Aztecs of Central America and the ancient peoples of the Indian subcontinent and the traditional farmers of Africa all independently discovered and valued marigolds as protective garden plants tells you something important about how reliable these plants are. In the Ayurvedic tradition of ancient India, marigolds have been used medicinally for over 3,000 years for wound healing and skin inflammation and eye health. In the traditions of Central American agriculture, marigolds were planted around crops not just as decoration but as a deliberate biological defense system that ancient farmers observed to work with remarkable consistency. The science behind why marigolds work so powerfully as companion plants is now very well understood. Marigold roots release a compound called alpha-terthianol into the surrounding soil, and this compound is toxic to the nematodes that are among the most destructive soil-dwelling pests that gardeners face, damaging root systems from below the surface in ways that are invisible until the plant is already seriously compromised. Research published in the journal Nematology has confirmed that marigold root exudates significantly reduce nematode populations in the surrounding soil, and the effect persists for weeks after the marigolds are removed, making them one of the most effective long-term soil treatments available to any gardener. Above the soil, marigolds release volatile compounds from their leaves and flowers that repel a broad range of insects, including whiteflies and aphids and thrips, and the tomato hornworm. And research has confirmed that companion planting marigolds with tomatoes significantly reduces whitefly populations on the tomato plants compared to tomatoes grown without marigold companions. The medicinal science around marigold is equally impressive and equally ancient. The active compounds in marigold flowers, including lutein and zeaxanthin and flavonoids and triterpenoids, have been shown in clinical research to have significant anti-inflammatory and wound healing and antioxidant properties. A study published in the Journal of Wound Care found that topical marigold preparation significantly accelerated wound healing compared to petroleum jelly in a randomized controlled trial. Marigold extracts have also demonstrated significant antifungal and antibacterial activity, and lutein and zeaxanthin from marigold are among the most studied compounds for the prevention of age-related macular degeneration and the protection of eye health. Marigolds are one of the easiest plants you will ever grow, and they reward you with almost zero effort required. Plant them from seed in full sun with moderate watering, and they will bloom prolifically throughout the growing season, continuously releasing their protective compounds into the soil and the air around them. Plant them densely around the perimeter of your vegetable beds and between your tomatoes and peppers, and you will create a biological defense system that protects your crops from above and below the soil simultaneously. When the flowers fade, collect the seeds and you will never need to buy marigold seeds again. Ancient civilizations on 3 separate continents discovered independently that this plant protects gardens and heals bodies. That kind of convergent discovery across cultures separated by oceans is not coincidence, it is evidence. Plant number 1, neem. We have arrived at plant number 1, and I want you to understand something before we begin that will frame everything you are about to hear. Neem has been called the village pharmacy of India. It has been used continuously in Ayurvedic medicine for over 4,000 years, making it one of the longest continuously used medicinal plants in human history. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe the neem tree as Sarva Roga Nivarini, which translates as the curer of all ailments. And modern researchers studying neem compounds are discovering that this ancient claim, while obviously hyperbolic, points toward a plant with a genuinely extraordinary range of biological activity. But before neem was a medicine, it was a farmer's shield. Ancient Indian farmers understood that the neem tree protected everything around it, and they planted it at the boundaries of their fields, and used its leaves and seeds and oil to protect their stored grain and their growing crops from the caimans, insects, and fungi and bacteria that threatened their harvest. This knowledge spread across Asia and Africa over thousands of years, and today neem is one of the most widely used natural pesticides in the world, recognized by agricultural authorities in multiple countries as a safe and effective alternative to synthetic chemical pesticides. The compound in neem that makes it so remarkable as a pesticide is called azadirachtin, and it works through a mechanism that is fundamentally different from synthetic pesticides. Rather than simply poisoning insects on contact, azadirachtin works as an insect growth regulator, disrupting the hormonal systems that insects use to develop from larvae to adults and to reproduce. This means that insects exposed to neem compounds cannot complete their life cycle and cannot reproduce successfully, which causes pest populations to collapse over successive generations without requiring the kind of repeated high-dose applications that synthetic pesticides demand. Research has confirmed neem's effectiveness against over 200 species of insect pest, including aphids and whiteflies and mealybugs and thrips and the larvae of many moth and beetle species, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency has registered azadirachtin-based products as minimum-risk pesticides. The medicinal science around neem is where things become truly extraordinary. Neem contains a diverse array of bioactive compounds including nimbin and nimbidin and guadunin and quercetin that have been studied for their antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and even anti-parasitic properties. Research published in peer-reviewed journals has demonstrated neem extract to be effective against the bacteria responsible for acne and skin infections, against the fungi responsible for athlete's foot and dandruff, and against the parasites responsible for malaria, with some studies suggesting neem compounds work through similar pathways to artemisinin. A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that neem leaf extract demonstrated significant anti-inflammatory activity comparable to aspirin in animal models. Neem oil is one of the most effective natural treatments for scalp conditions and skin fungal infections and has been used in traditional medicine for this purpose for thousands of years, before any clinical trial confirmed what traditional name practitioners already knew. Neem is a fast-growing tree that thrives in hot tropical and subtropical climates, and it grows exceptionally well across West Africa and throughout Nigeria, where the climate provides exactly the warm, dry conditions that neem prefers. A single neem tree grows quickly and lives for decades, continuously providing leaves and seeds and oil that you can use to make your own natural pesticide spray at home. To make a basic neem spray, simply soak crushed neem leaves in water overnight. Strain the liquid, add a few drops of liquid soap to help it adhere to plant surfaces, and spray it on your affected plants in the early morning or evening. For a more concentrated treatment, neem seed oil is widely available and can be diluted according to the instructions on the packaging for use as a highly effective broad-spectrum pest control treatment for your entire garden. Ancient Sanskrit texts called this plant the curer of all ailments. Modern researchers studying its compounds keep finding new reasons why ancient Indian physicians believed that was true. For thousands of years before synthetic chemicals were invented, farmers and healers and families grew plants that solved two problems at once. They protected the garden from the outside, and they protected the family from the inside. And they did this not because they were primitive or unsophisticated, but because they were paying close attention to what actually worked across generations of careful observation. The 7 plants in this video are not alternatives to modern pest control in the sense of being inferior substitutes. They are the original pest control system that God placed in the earth, refined by thousands of years of human use across multiple civilizations, and now confirmed by the science being published in laboratories around the world. The chemical industry did not improve on these plants. It replaced them with products that are cheaper to manufacture and more profitable to sell, and that replacement came at a cost to your garden, to your soil, and to your family's health that nobody told you about when you were standing in the garden center. Your garden deserves better than that. Your family deserves better than that, and now you have everything you need to give them both. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 plants you are going to add to your garden first, and whether you have already been using any of them without realizing how powerful they truly are. Because this community learns from each other as much as from any video, and your experience in your own garden is valuable knowledge that someone else reading these comments needs to hear. If this video changed the way you think about what your garden can do for your family, then subscribe to Life Gardens right now and hit the notification bell, because next week we are going into the biblical plants that God specifically designed to feed your family forever. Plants that ancient farmers relied on for generations that produce abundantly year after year, with almost no effort required. You do not want to miss that one. This is Life Gardens. This is your medicine. And it has been waiting for you all along.